Okay, welcome to everybody today, which is our regular Board of Supervisors meeting on September 3rd, 2024. And Ms. Hammond, would you give us a roll call, please?
Mr. Williams,
Here.
Mr. Bill Harris,
Here.
Mr. Crittenton,
Here.
Mr. Jesse,
Here.
Mr. Don Harris.
Here. Thank you very much. All right. Mr. Williams, are you prepared to lead us in a prayer? All right, sir, please.
Let us pray. Father, once again, we okay?
I think you just had some feedback. I don't know why, but continue on.
Let us pray. Oh, gracious Father, once again, we together here in this boardroom, this courthouse, God, try to do business of this county, Father. Be with us to strengthen us for understanding, learning, and of all, Father, the things that we do will be respectful to you. This is my prayer in Jesus' name. We all do pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mr. Williams. And Anne Marie, would you lead us in the pledge, please? All right, first thing on the agenda is the approval of the consent agenda. Would need a motion for that, please.
Something's not right in the minutes. Do we address that now?
Yes?
I'm thinking, let me see here. On page 7.
Now, bear in mind, this is the August regular board meeting. She doesn't have the work session in the consent.
Yes, okay. Excuse me, it's page 8, where we talked about Sun Tribe Amendment. I don't know if abstain and
Mike, please.
I'm pretty sure that I abstained from that vote. It says that as a nay.
Me too, so.
Mr. Harris did abstain from that vote, so.
It says nay.
I know it, but I
Oh,
abstained.
you didn't vote at all?
I said abstain when
he
it
said
was my turn
abstain.
to vote.
Okay.
So-
That was an error on our part then.
Thank you.
Can correct that.
Mr. Harris, you have anything else? Or anyone have anything else?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
So, Ms. Hammond, you'll make that adjustment for us?
And it won't need to come back. It's approved with that change, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Motion to approve the consent agenda, please.
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Williams,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Jesse. Thank you, fellas. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bill Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Crittenton,
Yes.
Mr. Jesse,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Don Harris.
Yes, motion of approval of the consent agenda was approved. Public comments. Anybody like to speak? Looks like we're lacking a few people here today. Thank you, sir, for being here and representing the public. With that,
Before we go any further, can I make one other correction?
you can.
On page 2 of your packet, we were very excited to present this, but we did manage to skip the October 1st, 2024 as one of the upcoming meetings. So you'll notice where it says upcoming meetings on page 2, there should have been October 1st, 2024, before Wednesday, November 6th. So you do have a meeting in October.
Okay.
Yeah, we were excited, trying to jump ahead, and we missed that.
So it should be October 1st? Okay.
Yeah, I think it's October 1st.
With no comments under the public, we'll close that and move to constitutional officers' report. You have a report only for the treasurer and report only for the commissioner of revenue. Any discussion for those two items? Hearing none, we'll move on to item number 4, agency and staff reports. First 1A is VDOT report only. I was surprised at how many, it looks like Urbana's getting a lot of stuff done over there, road-wise, but it looked like a pretty healthy list there. Okay, if it's nothing for VDOT, let's move to social services. That also is a report only. Any questions? Discussions? Hearing none, seeing none, we'll move to school services. That's also a report only. No report. Yep, and
Hey, Don, I got a question on the
Sure.
school report.
school matters?
School matters.
Yes, sir.
I remember last year that there was, the budget season ended the last of June. And I think last year they had a refund because they didn't use all the money. Surplus. So
Yep.
this year, it's 2 months in, and we don't have nothing.
We can ask them for that.
We need to ask them.
Uh,
I mean, I'm seeing so many no reports on everything, report only, and nobody's is really coming forth to say some things of what have changed. Are we doing anything different? And also, I don't know the proper time or not, but like last year, I think it was last year, maybe a year before last, when we said, some of us said that the board, some of the organizations didn't have to report. Now we done got relaxed at it because these ideas ought to be changing. It's not the same thing yesterday as it is today. And it seems like we're getting in a practice of what was done in the past and we're not making any changes. So these no reports, and I just happened to see that one, no report, and I'm just thinking about whether they got any money or anything to turn over, or just they want, make sure that it don't take you long to get the numbers right, because you got to do it every month, okay? So we 2 months in, and we should have some type of report to see whether we're going to receive anything back, or do we going to use the other things? Well, maybe I'm going to spin it all up, and then you don't get no report. And that's how I'm thinking right now. I'm sorry, because you said it's no report. So I'm just looking at it that way, Don. I'm sorry.
Great comments. In fact, with the school being the largest part of our budget, I think, report or not, somebody should be here to represent them. And if you would forward that to Tracy as well.
Mhm.
And we don't have a problem trying to keep her up on the agenda so that she doesn't have to stay around here for the whole meeting. But it gives us an opportunity, if we have a question, that having her or Karen here, perhaps that can be answered for
Okay.
us.
Well, I will make that happen.
You'll reach out and take care of that.
Absolutely.
Thank you,
And I
sir.
think we have a liaison committee coming up this month, too. We're going to be talking about a couple of issues in that committee. The school board finance committee meeting. I think it's later this month. I think we got a high school renovation committee meeting.
We have that tomorrow,
Yeah,
matter of fact.
yeah, we
so-
moved that from last week. Okay, yeah, very good. I'll mention that, Tracy.
Okay, and regarding the renovation committee, and we're trying to hash out what seems practical from a price standpoint and for what they initially think they want to do. And once we get that somewhat hashed out to continue to move forward, I think it'd be important for our board and the school board to get together to chat about what that ultimate goal looks like. Wayne, what's your thought on that?
You're very correct about that. I know we've been having different meetings, but, right now, nothing had really been pinpointed down at this time, and we're still looking at what they want to do.
Right, right. And I met with Dustin Harris and did a tour of some of the things that I have a little bit of a heartache about, and we discussed those. I think he's in agreement that it doesn't make sense to, particularly for the auditorium, to put it where they initially have thought they wanted to put it. So we'll still be discussing that as well.
And just to piggyback on that a little bit, Mr. Chairman, it's my understanding, I got a call from Tara Delaney. She was our USDA contact that had worked with us on the water system. She and another USDA new hire is coming through the region on a tour. I think they're going over on the Northern Neck to look at a couple projects, and they've asked to come here in Middlesex, look at the water system, and maybe take a look at the high school type of project too. I'll keep you informed on that. It's my understanding they want to come sometime next week or the week after.
Week after would be better.
Right. Oh, well, it won't, unless the board wanted to be there, you won't need to be, but they're coming through to tour some things, and I think they're following up with Jim and the Water Authority on some matters. And Pat Freer over in Whitestone as well.
Well, let us know,
I will.
because one of our board members may want to be there.
Absolutely.
Myself included,
Yeah, absolutely.
okay?
All right.
And,
Wonderful.
also, I'm seeing information that when, you gotta be very careful how things is coming through because they're looking at stuff. And I'm gonna give you a prime example of that. That was, for students going over the river when Kilmarnock have it, for these type of things, and we talking about renovation, and Lancaster got a high school they're gonna have to do something with. So we gotta be very cautious on how people are coming through and are eliminating us. And we are finding, and we are sitting there, we are sitting there saying, oh, I want to do this. And we also got something, and Matt was in the meeting that, that we test Tracy about, was something supposed to be coming about. And I don't know where that's at right now, but that got to be clarified because we got to kind of like put our hands on stuff that are happening that we really are we really stopping. It don't get to us and we can't react to it. I think one of them was an example of some students need an area to come, and it's between two, right now it's Gloucester and Middlesex. So at the same time, we might have to start doing things a little bit different if we got the information. In fact, I just told Tracy, make sure you don't let this one go. But anyway,
Great.
I'll leave it alone for now.
Good comments. Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Any comments? If not, we're going to continue to move forward. And item D, Waterfront Grant Project. Richard Watts, Stephen Talley, pages 54, 55.
That's all. All right. Good afternoon, Chairman Harris and board members. My name is Ricky Wyatt. I'm from VHB. We're the design consultants, engineers, and scientists that were hired by Kurt Smith and Louis Lawrence from the Middle Peninsula Planning District Commission. So we want to thank you all for the opportunity to come and speak today. Part of this is to give you an overview of this particular project, but also we wanted to make sure that you're aware of a funding source that's out there from the USDOT. As you were just talking about USDA and other federal grant programs, I know localities are constantly looking for available funding where they can find it. And so as we advance through the next slide here, I'll give you a little bit of description on this particular project, but also again on the RAISE program. And feel free to stop me at any point if there's any questions along the way. So this particular project was, as I mentioned, Kurt Smith, who's sitting over to my left, so he can jump in as well, but they worked on writing this grant application to the US DOT, the RAISE grant, and I'll get into that in a second. But it's a grant focused at the working watermen and the working waterfront. And so as you can see the description here, there was approximately about 65 publicly owned sites in the Middle Peninsula. So the 6 counties that make up the Middle Peninsula, the towns included. And those sites are either owned by the locality themselves or by the DOT or some of the Access Authority owns several of those. So we were tasked with looking at all of these sites and seeing how we can make improvements for the maritime industry as a whole, whether that is the seafood industry, whether it's dock builders, dredging operations, marine contractors, all of that. So through our process, we've evaluated each of those sites, but we've also had a lot of public engagement and in one-on-one meetings with these end users to see what we could do to improve these sites. And you'll see as we go through the presentation, the map of those sites, but I'll talk a little bit, but this is really meant to be a high-level overview of the program. We've obviously narrowed it down. We can't do improvements at all 65 sites. Some of them really go into the bucket of recreational use and not commercial use. And again, this funding source was a little unique. There's been recreational grants in the past that will pay for saltwater fishing piers and boat ramps through DWR. So those grants really are meant more for the commercial, for the recreational side. This grant was really geared for commercial use. And so we went through those sites, we narrowed them down to about 25 sites, and then we put them through a full criteria, and we're at the point now where we're trying to go from 25 down to 12, and then down to the final count that we go for another round of funding. So the funding will be another grant application, and that comes in January of 2025. And so that money would go to actually the implementation of the projects.
Question, what counties are participating with this as a group?
So all six, so Essex, Middlesex, Gloucester, Matthews, King and Queen, King William. And so the town of West Point and the town of Tappahannock and town of Urbana.
Wonderful.
I don't think I missed any. I've got them all memorized, but so, it helps being a local, so being from around here. But so the breakdown, and I do have a cheat sheet on that. There were 6 sites in Essex, 16 sites in Gloucester, 3 in King and Queen, 3 in King William, 16 in Matthews, and 19 in Middlesex. So that's what we started with. And again, these needed to be publicly owned sites. So we can go to the next slide. I'll talk a little bit about the funding source because again, our job as working for the PDC is to put all 65 sites into an implementation plan. And so even if you don't make it to the final cut of this that goes in January for funding, you could, as a county, decide we really want that site to move forward, even though we didn't make it in the top 6 out of the whole region. You, as a county, could also apply for a RAISE grant. And so that's for one site. But then also, you've got 19 sites. We might recommend that at this site you do put a new fishing pier in, or this site might be good for a ramp improvement. So at the end of this project, you're going to get recommendations for all of your sites, but what's important for the timeline, and which Matt will be getting here actually this week, will be our recommendation on the sites that move forward for the RAISE grant funding. So what's on the screen now, this is the RAISE grant website. It's Rebuilding America Infrastructure with Sustainability and Equity. It's a mouthful, so we call it the RAISE grant. This grant, if we can go to the next slide, it's not the first of its kind. It's actually was first called the Tiger Grant, and then it went Build, and now it's RAISE. Each administration just kind of changes the acronym to meet what the goal is. But what's key is, if you look at the graph on my right, maybe on your left, the amount of funding that's being put into this pot of money has significantly grown. And it's very popular. We are actually working on 3 different RAISE grants in the state of Virginia right now, and the funding source is just continuing. So it's very important that we try to get some of this funding as it's available. As we all know, it's not guaranteed.
Is there a match or any type of?
That is the wonderful part about RAISE grant. There is not a match, local match. If you're familiar with a lot of your other grant sources, transportation alternatives and others, there's a lot of times there's a 20% local match. But this one is fully funded through the grant program. So again, the numbers here speak for itself. The 2.2 is what was this past year. And what we were a recipient, or the PDC was a recipient, was one of the 197 planning grants. And then again, so what we would be going for is the implementation. That's how most of them are broken down. You do the planning side up front, make sure it's a viable project, which that sets it apart from some of the other grant sources. A lot of times you don't get money until you've done the design. This gives, there's a funding opportunity for the actual planning part of it. Any questions on raise? Again, it's a US DOT funding source. Our particular grant, because it's based on water, it's the Maritime MARAD administration, which is just an arm of the US DOT. So MARAD is another acronym, but it's part of US DOT, just for the waterways.
Another question.
Yes, sir.
All right, to get the grant, you said a few seconds ago that it should be shovel-ready, so places got the project shovel-ready, most likely be the first ones to serve.
The scoring, yes, it tends that those projects that are shovel-ready get a higher scoring matrix to it. It's a higher preference. It's not a requirement. There are some projects, for example, the Eastern Shore, there was a feasibility study done for the rail-to-trail bike trail over there. It's a 49-mile bike trail. That feasibility study was done by VDOT, and it was 15% design, not shovel-ready by any means. What the AMPDC, the Accomack Northampton PDC, they went for funding and received a grant for design build. So that project is not shovel-ready, but they were able to get funding. I think close to 20 million approximately that they received for the bike trail over there. So you don't necessarily have to have it shovel-ready, but it is a preference, I would say, and definitely helps your scoring. That is our goal with with the site selected. Once we select the site, we're going to begin all the processes necessary to survey, hydro survey, engineering, begin the joint permit applications, the NEPA compliance, because it is a federal. We're going to begin all of those for the selected sites. We're not actually going to hit send on the permit until we get the funding, but we're going to have the plans, the engineering plans and everything ready for those selected sites. If one of your sites that doesn't get selected, you want to advance it, even though it doesn't get selected, then you would need to secure, you could either go one route or the other. You could apply for funding without the design complete, but you'd still have this background to the project and support your grant.
So what you're saying is that y'all selection is more important than the shovel-ready? And it's the shovel-ready ones, you got to spend some money to get it shovel-ready. So is that refundable? And in your remarks a few seconds ago, it sounds like to me that once I select it could have more priority on the ones that are trying to get the project done. Is that the way it's going to be?
So you could jump in, but so
It seems like it, and then we get, you get in a gray area for me. Selected plus what red and what you need, I get a gray area.
So the selected, like I mentioned, my example, some projects are not going to, they don't have to have the design to be selected. This project is very unique versus some other projects. For example, the Eastern Shore project, that's one corridor, one project. There's a project in Charlottesville for a 3-notch trail. That's one project. We know where the project's going to be. Here, we had 65 sites. So they're not connected to one another. They're standalone projects. So we feel that any one of them, even if it doesn't make the 6 or I keep using 6, it may be 5, it may be 7 that make it out of this round. if you don't make it in that first, your project's still a good project, you're going to be a strong applicant as well, but there's only a certain amount of money in the grant that pays our firm to do the engineering and design. And so that's why we have to narrow it down to a certain number of sites, is because of just the availability of funds to do the engineering and the permitting. But just because if you're number 7 on the list and we cut the line at 6, that 7th project still would probably be a very good project. It's just the funds aren't there for the engineering. It would still make a good applicant for the RAISE grant.
Also, 5 counties, 2 towns. Is it possible to select a county which is in a town in a county, and both of them get a selection, or that's a reason not to get it?
No, so actually, I think it's the next slide here. Yeah, if we can go to the next slide, and I'll come back. So this is just schedule. Part of what we've heard, and this may be clear once I get through the presentation, what we're hearing is it doesn't benefit us as to meet the watermen and the maritime need by selecting 3 projects in Gloucester and not selecting any in Middlesex and going up. I mean, it's going to meet the needs the best if we can sprinkle the sites around the region. And that's what we feel in our matrix is saying that is going to make this an appealing project at the federal level. That if we can spread it equitably through the region, and so whether that means 1 site in Gloucester, 1 in Matthews, 1 in Middlesex, or 2 in a couple, the goal is to reach the full region. Now, one thing about Middlesex, I will say, is similar to Gloucester in some ways. You've got a long stretch of water with the Rappahannock River, and you see all the dots on the map. And if you go to the next one, we can talk just about Middlesex. We've got some holes in the map on the western end of the county. We've got quite a few publicly owned sites down in the Deltaville. We've got some in Urbana, or 1 in Urbana. But the problem with the one in Urbana is that site was funded with boating infrastructure money, which is a great funding source, but that restricts that site to use by recreational boaters. And so that's the challenge. We have a conflicting use in Urbana. So the watermen would love to have a site in that region. And you can see there's a big gap. And it's really a shared problem between Middlesex and Essex, but that there's a long stretch of the river that doesn't have access for commercial watermen publicly. And one of the things we're hearing is the watermen are losing access to really to store their boats. Historically, they would use private marinas, but a lot of the private marinas have shifted their focus to purely recreational pleasure craft instead of allowing that mixed use. So there's a hole identified. Now, because of the timing of this first round of grants, we couldn't acquire property and go through all of that process, do the design and engineering for a piece of property, but that is absolutely something that could be done in the next round of grant cycle. The grant will pay for acquisition of property. It will pay for public-private partnerships, so you might find a private owner that is willing to enter into an agreement where they would make part of their property available for public commercial use. So there's some things that will take longer than a year to get done, but it is something that part of our implementation plan will absolutely be for Middlesex and Essex to look at that stretch of the river and say, is there a piece of property available from bridge to bridge? I mean, that's pretty much where we need it, that would help serve that gap. Part of our, and we can continue to the next slide, our discussions were with both large-scale seafood operations, but also commercial contractors. These are just a very few, but what the point of this was that we didn't just talk to people in the Middle Peninsula. The seafood industry and the maritime industry There's dock builders in Lancaster that build docks in Middlesex and Gloucester. There's seafood, Cowherd is in Northumberland, and they're coming all the way down. So we had to expand our outreach beyond, because it's a very unique end user. And so we've really gone throughout the region. We did do an online survey, but that was really targeted using the Virginia Watermen's Association, their database, and we attended some of their meetings. They pushed it out for us. And so that's really how we've gotten the feedback we've gotten, which has been valuable. We can continue to the next slide. This is just one example. One of the pictures from the online survey. It was about a 15-question survey, which the watermen did find very easy to access and go through the selection options. We just pulled out a couple questions out of there. The full survey will be part of our final report, but one of the big specific challenges that I mentioned earlier about sprinkling the sites all the way around is their number one concern was the long run time. So the closer that they can dock and actually get the seafood product off, or whether it's if they're a dock builder or maritime industry, it's having quick access to their work area. So that's why it didn't make sense to put 3 sites in Gloucester and nothing on this end. So we really want to serve the whole region. And then the second question we pulled out, we just asked, and this really hit home to what I was just talking about. We asked if there was not an access point now, where would you want one? And the number one response was the Rappahannock River, emphasis between Deltaville, Urbana, and Warsaw. And Tappahannock was number 2, because there's really besides Garrett's Marine, which is a private facility, there's not anything on that whole stretch that is a publicly owned facility that they can launch from, dock from. And one of the big things, we'll go to the next slide, a lot of it we think about just docking, but with shellfish, it's about quick access to getting the shellfish off the boat in a timely manner, getting it into refrigerated trucks, and then getting it to the processing facility. And so we've listed, part of our partners on this project is VMRC and also VIMS, and so we have a lot of the data about what the top products are. And so you'll see here the oysters, number 1, crabs, and then a growing trend is the blue catfish. That's further upriver, so that's a little bit more specific on Tappahannock, West Point, going up the river. But again, the results that kept saying proximity to the catch is the most important. The other thing with the oysters in particular, is actually also being able to get the product back into the water. So the way that they now harvest shells, they're actually planting the seed back on the shell and then putting them back into the creeks and rivers. So really, our designs that we are going to promote and push forward are going to include things like docks that you can drive trucks out onto. So with the funding source, I don't think I mentioned it yet, but the funding is between 20 and 25 million is what the ask will be for. So when we do things, we're talking about concrete piles or 12, 14-foot wide piers, wharfs-like structures that are going to last our lifetime and going to hold up the weight of a truck. So it's a little different than your recreational dock and fishing pier. But that's what's needed. Is a lot of these sites are very small in nature, so it's difficult to maneuver, turn around, and so that's where our designs are really going towards, where you can drive the truck right out, load the catch right on, and leave. There's some good examples that on the private side that we've looked at, and it's very basic. We're not talking about building huge buildings and a lot of infrastructure, but it's more about the basics, the pavement structure, which we can go to the next slide. That really kind of hits on what these facilities, heavy-duty pavement, And so instead of just a 2-inch asphalt, we're talking about structure, thicker concrete, things that will hold up longer in the maintenance cycle. Dumpsters, they do want to keep these sites clean. We're not going to run sewer and water to all these sites. So having a place where it's restrooms that can either be pump and haul or the porta potty style, lighting. Most of these sites are used during normal daylight hours, but you do have that fringe periods where you do need lighting, and that really adds to the security of the sites as well. Boat ramp, where feasible, not every site's going to include a boat ramp, but the industry has shifted a little bit into smaller, like Carolina skiffs, and a little away from the larger wooden dead rise boats, and which you historically would think about. So we need to be flexible where we can do boat ramps. They do help, especially in the crab industry. The crabbers are taking their boats in the pots to where the crabs are. The crabs kind of move seasonally, and so that they need to be a little bit more flexible than the shellfish, the oysters and clams. And then there at the bottom, the vehicle accommodations. They would all love to be able to have a tractor trailer backed right down to the dock. That's not feasible at 90% of these sites. So then if that doesn't work, then a box truck. And if the box truck doesn't work, then the pickup truck with the refrigerated box in the back of it. So the watermen will figure it out. Our designs are gonna maximize the sites, and then whatever works for that site is what they'll bring to it.
Will your final report show, and let's just, for simplicity, let's say you have 10 sites that you identify that you want to look at, will you have data to support how much commercial or recreational, but I'm really targeting it to commercial usage from this particular location? Will you have any of that kind of information?
So,
Do you understand what I'm
yeah,
asking?
absolutely. So you're looking for, let's say, Lockley's versus Whiting Creek. If that one gets 50 trucks a day and versus 2 trucks a day.
Correct.
It is a little difficult. We're going off of what we've heard from the watermen.
Okay.
But we also have data from VMRC that shows the pounds and the volume but that data is broken down by water body and not necessarily the landing.
Gotcha.
And so we know where the catch is, what body of water it's coming from. But we're also kind of projecting that if if the Rappahannock is producing all of this, they've got to be, and they're telling us we want to bring it to shore at the most convenient spot, then we definitely need a facility here. There may not be a facility that's serving their needs right now, and so they're taking it to another facility. So that's a little bit where we're projecting some of this based on what they're taking out of the water, where we know the lease grounds are, what's being productive. But like I said, Whiting or maybe Lockley's today, Lockley's has a single pier, and if you had a more substantial dock, and if we needed to dredge or do something like that, more watermen may come to that particular facility than they do today because the facility can handle it. So it's a little bit of a projection there.
Okay.
But we do have solid data on where the catch is.
Okay, well, I would assume that you'd need some of that information for deciding whether Middlesex is number 2 or Essex is number 3, on the list.
Yeah.
You'd want some of that, and I get it that you're not going to have all that you needed to do from that informational standpoint, but at least y'all are trying to gather some of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, cool, okay.
And it's, if we can just go back to the map just while we're talking, I think that's the presentation, but the big thing, probably the overall map, the very next slides, thank you. As you can see, 65 sites, they're pretty well distributed in the region. Each one kind of serves a different need, kind of regionally. The ones further up West Point, up the Mattaponi, Pamunkey, that's catfish, and you're not getting the shellfish up there. So there's a different need in a facility there than there is at Perrin or Davis Creek and Matthews, that they're going out into the bay. It's a different boat. It's a different operation. So we've factored all of that into the decisions, again, about what the catch is. And then some of it, we went into this thinking we were going to make a site where the public could come and buy straight off the boat, and it was going to be this great interaction between the watermen and the public. But what we've learned, I don't think that's necessarily the goal of the watermen, and not necessarily the goal for all types of catch. Some of it is because, which is very good because of the food safety. So the shellfish cannot be sold. Oysters and clams has to go through an inspection process in a processing facility before it gets sold to the public. Where a bushel of crabs, yes, you could go right to a waterman, buy those bushel of crabs right off and go home and steam them up. So it's a little different. So there may still be some opportunities for that. I mean, we would support it, but it's more, as we've said, it's trying to make it more efficient for the watermen and maritime industries. Again, I've used watermen, but it's also like the dredging, the dock builders. Whatever we build for the watermen is also going to benefit those other maritime industries.
The 19 spots, which I'm assuming MDX4 as just an example, MDX would be Middlesex.
Yes, sir.
Correct? And will your final report show the address of what number 1 is versus number 19?
Yeah, so this, again, was just meant to be a high-level talk
Right.
about the grant.
Gotcha.
So, because again, as Mr. Walker had asked us really to talk about as a county, your opportunities. I can tell you, you have sites in the top 12 that you will see drawings for. In that package, you'll see a proposed plan, but you will also see a site conditions report. And that is several pages of site photos, the address, the water depth.
Good.
One of the things it could be an hour-long presentation here, but we also looked at coastal vulnerability, sea level rise, so how often the site is inundated at low tide, the wind direction, the exposure. So it's a very in-depth look at all the sites, and that's part of the site conditions report. So that's part of this is we're trying to advance the sites that are going to make it, and so we meet that deadline for January of applying for that next money. But at the end of this, you're going to get a very thick stack of documents in an online tool to go in and look at as well, that will be used for years to come for future grants and future projects.
The information you said that VMRC provided you about which rivers they're harvesting from and
sir.
so forth and so on, I believe in that same report, they also tell you which counties where those products were delivered to. Now, if
Yes.
it comes out of the Rappahannock River, they're going to tell you where it went on the other side of the river. It came to Middlesex.
Yes, sir.
That said, is there any consideration given for where the most seafood is coming in, where the most monies is coming to? In other words, if Middlesex has 1 ton of seafood and another county has a half a ton, does that come into play when you're selecting a site?
So, RAISE obviously has the E stands for equity, and so I think it would be unfair to go completely by volume. Gloucester would probably, just offhand, I don't know, I don't have all my data to support me, but Gloucester would probably get all the sites if you strictly went by volume in that. So the way I think Kurt and Louis were very creative in writing this grant was to appeal to the entire region. So I think, although it weighs in a little bit to showing us where there's a need, we've been very careful of trying to be equitable to the entire region, so that we meet the intent of what was written with the grant.
Thank you, very good, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I got a question too. If we have a site that keeps filling in, will they put, with this grant, pay for a wall to keep them filling in and things like that?
Is there a particular site you're in, have in mind?
Yeah, there is, but you know what we're talking about, but
Yeah,
I'm just curious.
I
will
know
it
which
pay
one
for
you're,
something like
you're
that?
talking about there. So yeah, as part of our study, we've looked at drifting sands and migration and we're trying to project what's going to happen. And so the particular site you're talking about, I believe, is one where we would propose a more robust wall jetty that goes out further that would stop the sand from migrating back. It's something, again, that the project budgets that we're proposing are significantly more than you would probably spend as a locality to build a jetty or a simple wall. So we're going to, as we say, swing for the fence. And I mean, if we're going to build something, it needs to last a longer time. That's why we're talking about concrete versus timber in our structures. And then we're also, if it's concrete floating docks to break a fetch where we have wave action concern, we would use concrete floaters that will actually break that up. And so whether we need to put out a sill that goes out further to stop wave action, those are the type of things that would go into our design. So it wouldn't just be, let's dredge it one time and put a boat ramp back in. No, we would actually absolutely plan for as much as we can predict will happen in the future.
Right, because I was just wondering because when you prioritize, you know that one county is doing trying to getting some plans of doing something. Look like to me they would rate a little higher versus somebody ain't doing nothing at all.
Understood, yes.
Okay, all right. That's all I need to say.
What, is there anything that you would want from us as far as information input or anything like that?
So you will be getting some of the design options through Matt, and he will get them distributed to him. And then Matt has been the voice at the LGA meetings and been part of this process, and Dave, both, thank you. So Matt and Dave have been instrumental on touring the sites and giving us the input. So that's been most useful. What we just need, again, there's no match. We just want to make sure that if this site or site A or site B moves forward, that there's no political angst, whether it's with your neighbors or if you feel like this neighborhood is not going to support a commercial dock here, we need to know that very, very soon.
Okay.
So that's our biggest thing, because you're not committing any county funds.
Right.
So it's more about making sure your citizens are okay with the decisions that are being made by administration and you all.
Okay, so we're not, there's no way we're going to be able to promote our, a particular,
I've made this presentation in a few other counties, and they all wanted, they asked the same question, which is, understandable. But I would tell you that between the PDC and Curtin Louie, they've done a great job keeping us focused on being equitable, and I think we have as well. So it's, I think, just a huge thanks to the PDC needs to be given, because this is a very unique grant. And when we do this road show, we've been in Northern Neck, and they're like, well, why can't we get some of this? And so that's the question of they're going to be the ones really jealous across the river. And so hopefully they will look at this as a model and do something similar in the Northern Neck or on the Eastern Shore. We've heard it as well. So.
don't tell them about it.
Not until we've
They
already
already know.
applied.
They already know.
Yeah.
If I may chime in, I wanted to, I guess, give a little bit more color to this picture. You look on that map and you think, oh my gosh, we got a wealth of competition going after these monies. Look at all those sites. What surprised Dave and I at the first meeting that we had with VHB is the number of sites that the counties themselves have just pulled off of the table for consideration. And it illustrates the pressure that our commercial watermen and working watermen are under right now. Residential development has pushed a lot of these guys out. And the boards themselves in some of these counties said, no, 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 we don't want to touch that. No, 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 not there, because they're reacting to what they would perceive to be a whirlwind of citizen outcry if a site that was being tolerated, I heard that word a couple times, was further developed. That's kind of where we are in 2024. And it's sad because my personal opinion and professional opinion, commercial waterman's, part of our culture, rural culture. And now they're having a tough time finding a place to operate. So having said that, Dave and I have kind of went at this heretofore with a mindset of, we want to be wary of the politics and maybe some potential input from neighbors and whatnot, but we really need to give deference and care a lot to what the commercial watermen are feeding and telling us, the feedback we're getting from them.
Should we read anything into the different colors of the dots on here?
Well, notice we have a lot, so.
No, you do, and thank you, Matt. Going into this project 65, we were a little overwhelmed thinking, how are you going to get from 65 down to 4 or 5? But it was fairly easy to get from 65 down to 25. And then when we went to 25 down to 12, that really worked itself out as well. How we're going to get from 12 to 6 is definitely going to be the challenge. That's going to be more difficult because we really feel like all 12 of these sites, which is also one of the main reasons Matt asked us to come and is to, I keep stressing this in all the localities. If you're not in the top 6, if you're 7 or 8, that doesn't mean your project should stop. It just means that we just didn't have the budget to do all of those, but we really feel like it's a good project. I think in a perfect world, all 12 sites would move forward.
Right.
Not all 65,
Right.
but I think the 12 that we're down to now all would have a big impact. It's just, we've got to, the money runs out at some point, so.
Anybody else? If not, I'll apologize to you, Mr. Wade. I didn't have my glasses on when I came in, and I very seldom see you without a baseball cap and some sort of jersey on for the Little League. So I apologize for not quickly recognizing you when you got here, but thank you very much. You've been very informative today. It's kind of right up our alley of some of the things we're looking at as well. Kirk knows that here in the county, and we look very favorable to your next report when you come in. Thank you very much.
I'm glad we didn't have to argue over any calls or anything, because
Hey,
we always see eye to eye.
You know the deal. When it's all said and done, we're friends,
That's right.
regardless of the arguing.
That's right.
Thank you very much for
Thank you for
coming.
your time.
Thank you. Mr. Smith, we're going to be a little harder on you than we were on him, actually. Yes, sir.
Thank
Go
you,
ahead.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, good afternoon. I've been asked to provide an update on where things stand with the Broad Creek dredging project, and,
Could I stop you 1 second?
yes, sir.
We don't say it enough. I know I've said it a couple of times when you come in front of us, but we don't say it enough, and we're very excited about the work that you do for us here in Middlesex County, and you are an asset for us, and thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you, sir.
Go ahead.
That's very kind. Yes, so Broad Creek dredging project and next steps. So the last time you heard from me about this project, we were ramping up to do the lion's share of work, which with dredging projects actually occurs before you even apply for a permit. So the county was able to get under contract after a successful procurement with Seaward Marine for both phases of the dredging project. Phase 1 being all the pre-dredging activities. Phase 2 was procured for the actual dredging project. That contract was issued to Seaward Marine in a manner that it was the terms and the costs were agreed upon for Phase 1. And there was an option included for the contract that could be activated or executed for Phase 2. So you have that option on the table, just to keep in mind. So Seaward hit the ground running on all the pre-dredging work. Their team went out and the first thing they did was sample the sediments to be dredged in the channel of the creek and the effluent or the water that would essentially drain out of those materials once you put them into the spoils area, as we had discussed. That process carried through May till we got the lab results back. And if you recall, the reason why we did this, just as a refresher, is the previous time the creek had been dredged by the Corps with federal money, there was a long delay associated with water quality and regulations that were tripped because of some heavy metals that were detected in the sediments. Basically, the thought was once the material's put into the dredge material holding area, you need to have certainty that that effluent draining out of the area is free of any contamination of concern. So we wanted to be proactive. Again, the more effort and the more streamlining you can do on the front end saves a lot of time on the back end. So we did this sampling in a proactive way in hopes that it will give us a clearer path through the permitting process. So we did receive good news that there were no contaminants present above acceptable levels. So that should help us clear a hurdle, we hope, in the permitting process. And after that hurdle, once that work was completed, then we began designing the actual dredging project in preparation for the joint permit application and the required Section 408 application on the federal side. And so your appointed staff who assisted us along the way helped inform the design of the project and essentially what was applied for in late July. The JPA and the Section 408 package were submitted. The optimal way to go about trying to get a dredging permit is you ask for what would be your max. You ask for permission for the maximum amount you would dredge, and then if you need to, you can scale down accordingly. But you've got permission to dredge a lot. You may end up dredging less than that. So that's what we did. The JPA included a design for 10 feet below mean low water. But the congressionally authorized specs for the channel are -8 mean low water. And looking at the Corps' bathymetric survey, an 8-foot mean low water depth would equate to about 28,300 cubic yards of material. So there could be an ability to go up, and we know because of other work that was done looking at the disposal area, we know roughly right now that your disposal area would hold somewhere in the ballpark of 30 upwards to 50,000 cubic yards. So you've got a little bit more capacity to go deeper. It's at the end of the day, it's all going to be a function of cost. That's on the depth side of things. The channel itself, the design includes what they call wideners. So the channel's only ever been dredged inside the federal channel footprint. This design includes up to 3 different what they call wideners, where you would essentially, you can see it on the cross section there of how channels are typically dredged with a sloped bank, because you don't want to dredge straight down so the sides slump in. So you've got this slump bank, but what we're proposing doing is going a little wider on each side, which essentially will buy you time between dredging maintenance cycles, because it will take longer for the sand to, we know those shoals will never stop being active. So that sand is going to start creeping in, but because you've gone wider, you've bought more time before it becomes a navigational issue. So there's 3 sections ranging from 13 to 15 feet wider to accommodate that advanced lateral maintenance. And and it runs the entire span of the federal channel, which you can see there, that the innermost portion terminates, you had it right there, Amber, yeah, that part right there. The innermost portion is where the hatched, the cross-hatched solid black line ends, right at the entrance to the channel, and then it runs all the way out into the river. So that would be where the actual dredging would occur. Obviously, the idea was to get the material into the county-owned spoils area, whether through hydraulic or mechanical dredging is to be determined, and that will be negotiated as part of Phase 2, the Phase 2 contract. In terms of the permit application, we've already received promising preliminary feedback from the federal side, where the Corps anticipates completing its processing of the permit in the coming month or so. The challenge we anticipate encountering will be on the VMRC side, on the state side of how they will process, and it's strictly a staff capacity issue. The Corps, VMRC has had a lot of staff turnover. They've only got a handful of folks. They're relatively new, but we have used previous legislation that was passed by Delegate Hodges with support from the MPPDC, which requires VMRC to fast-track dredging projects for this very reason. You've got a public safety hazard. So we hope that legislation that was put in place years ago in anticipation of problems like this would help get us further to the front of the line in the permit review process. With regards to Phase 2, like I've already described how that contract was structured with Seaward Marine, but I also wanted to remind you of availability of state grant funds from the Department of Conservation and Recreation's Community Flood Preparedness Fund. The PDC received $336,000, and we have a service agreement with the county on this as a reminder, but $336,000 in grant funds available for this project, and they need to be expended by February 2020, the end of February 2025. So those funds are available and on the table for the county to use for this project. I just wanted to point out that there are terms and conditions tied to those funds that require that the use of those funds be restricted to beneficially reusing them for nature-based solutions. That's how it's, quote unquote, that's how it's worded in the contract, nature-based solutions. So should the county wish to avail itself of those grant funds, I think it would behoove the county or the board to take steps to resolve that whatever materials placed in there, which we know is good coarse sand that can be used for nature-based solutions like shoreline placement, things like that, you all could resolve to use those materials for those purposes. Yeah, exactly. Yes, sir. So, so I wanted everybody to understand that would be a necessary step should you use those grant funds. And aside from that, we're playing the waiting game, and there's things that are out of our control in the permitting process at this point, but there are some things that can be done with regards to consideration for the Phase 2 contract that the county could begin considering and talking about. So you've got your contract solution in place for when that permit arrives.
So Kurt, if it's the board's intent to continue with our agreement as is from April, we could go ahead and start negotiating and getting a final draft of a contract that's approvable with Seaward, have that all ready to go, pending JPA approval.
That's right. Or the alternative is you have to put Phase 2 back out for bid.
And the alternative would be we'd put it out for bid.
Yeah.
And using some of the bathymetrics and some of the data that we've already got, just put it on a market and see what price we get.
Are you familiar with what's going on over at Hole in the Wall? with Seaward doing that dredging?
Yes, sir, I'm managing that project too.
My understanding, they're probably going to be coming back, taking some more material out?
They will be coming back this fall.
Okay.
I've had discussions with them about, it's actually written in Seaward's contract for Broad Creek, that that was part of their proposal, was that they would give you all preference in terms of coming back to do the work, should you contract them for phase 2.
So you see them being able to mobilize in the spring then? Yeah,
That's what they proposed,
that's what,
so.
thank you.
Any further questions for Mr. Smith?
I think what we need from the board is, if it's the board's continued desire to continue with Phase 2, we probably need to negotiate that Phase 2 contract with Seaward, get a price, and get that back in front of you. I talked to the project manager today, and I think that they're anticipating the price per cubic yard to be commensurate with that of Matthews counties. Maybe in the ballpark, a little higher because of inflation or whatnot, but we won't know until we start negotiating that contract. Just want to make sure y'all are still comfortable with that agreement.
If they give us a price and we don't like the price, then we can still go back out for bid for everyone or not?
Until you ratify that amended agreement on the second phase, like if they give you a horrible price and y'all just don't like it, or you feel like it's horrible, yeah, you can tell us, go out to bid. Until you sign it, I don't think they're committed.
That's right.
Yep.
And they cost these by volume, so it's turnkey by volume. So if you do, they give you a rate, and you take that rate as far as you can afford it.
Thank you.
So is it consensus of the board to continue to move forward on the dredging? Okay. You need anything more than that?
Yes, a motion.
Okay. Mr. Jesse?
I'll make a motion that we have signed a contract with Seaward Marine. That we need.
You want to make the motion to negotiate Phase 2 with Seaward Marine?
Yeah, make a motion to negotiate phase 2 with Seaward Marine.
Motion made by Mr. Jesse,
Second.
second by Mr. Crittenden. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Jesse,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Bill Harris,
Yes,
Mr. Crittenden,
Yes.
Mr. Don Harris.
Yes, motion's approved. Thank you, Mr. Smith, for being here today. Appreciate what you
I'll
do.
offer one more, thank you very much, I appreciate that. One more thing, because I know Mr. Jesse mentioned shoaling protection in the future and structures that could be placed out there. I wanted to mention that we have prepared a procurement for designing such a structure for Broad Creek, and we're hoping to publish that very shortly.
Thank
So,
you.
You'll be hearing more about that in the future.
Good information. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you all.
And Kurt, thank you, and it's my understanding Ingrid's going to be finishing up her work
Yes.
on Mill Creek by the end of the month, too.
That's correct,
So we'll be having more to report on that.
that's correct. All right, thank you all.
Y'all have a good day. Okay, to finish up the discussion on dredging, we do have a budget supplemental request form 2025-6, which is moving funds around that's already been appropriated. So I need a motion for that. That would be on page 113.
Would you like me to remind you what this is?
Please.
Okay, the next.
I know what it is,
I-
but for
the next-
everybody else.
The next 3 items on your agenda, which is budget supplement number 2025-6, -7, and -8, are, I can really summarize this. On 3 different occasions, the board approved a contract and the funding source, so everything was approved, but the little T wasn't crossed and the I wasn't dotted on these. It was done without the paper budget appropriation. So while the records in the minutes show that the board approved each, I still have to have the appropriation paperwork. The first one, completed, as you just heard, is the Seaward contract for the design of that dredge. And as you see, you approved it back on the board on April 2nd, 2024. The contract was approved. All we're doing right now is appropriating the money from the fund balance as was approved at the time. So this is just crossing the Ts, so I'd like an appropriation on that one. And while I'm on a roll, because I think you guys would agree that these are all almost identical, at the July 9th board meeting, the board approved a task for our airport contractor Parish and Partners to update the LP, funded by a grant with the matching from the fund balance. And by the way, the grant does now show in the DOAV website, so that was definitely approved. And then the third one, also a grant, was the Burn Grant, law enforcement cameras. So again, this one was approved at the August board meeting. So again, all three of these were previously approved, easy for me, approved by the board, and I am just asking for you all to do that final T crossing, I dotting. Thank you.
And that would require a motion for each one,
No.
all three?
I'll make a motion that we
Please.
approve budget supplement request form 2025, 6 through 8.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Mr. Jesse, second by Mr. Crittenden. Any further discussion? Roll call on all three, please.
Mr. Williams.
Yes.
Mr. Bill Harris.
Yes.
Mr. Crittenden.
Yes.
Mr. Jesse.
Yes.
Mr. Don Harris.
Yes, and the motion for all three being approved, 2025-06, 7, and 8, has been approved. All right, moving right along.
Okay, I hate being the one on this one, but this was tabled, so ergo I must bring it back forward right now, and that is to approve and appropriate the funds for the Bowman HRSD change order. As you recall, this was, let me go to the mic, this was brought forth to you by Jeremiah, and the contract amount, the amended amount is 44, come on now, pull up the right page, Emery, is for $44,256 related to the Saluda sewer construction. You all discussed this last month, and then again at the August 27th work session, and you may approve it, or you may table it for another month. But at that time, the only thing you requested was proof that there was bear with me, that there was an inspector, there we go, an inspector on site. And he did provide us, Jeremiah provided us information with pictures that an inspector was on site on April 20th, 23, when the building was installed, or the building was delivered. So that's all the information I have.
I believe you provided that information because part of the problem was the building came with a double door and it was supposed to have a single door, and the double doors, they're saying that there were some delays in being able to install it because of wall space and the double doors versus the single door. And apparently they went ahead and let it be installed, the building installed with the double doors in it.
Okay, how you want to move on this?
I'll make a motion that we approve budget supplement request form FY 2025-5.
Looking for a second. Motion made by Mr. Jesse,
I'll second.
second by Mr. Crittenden. Further discussion? I'll ask for the call in a second. Yeah, I mean, we've been struggling with this thing for a little bit. They did come off considerably what the amount was and what they're asking for now. I don't know that I necessarily have an opinion one way or the other than the change order. There was some discrepancy on whose fault it was and who was going to pay for it, and I guess I feel somewhat justified that the amount went down significantly from what we were talking about. So with that being said, if there's no other discussion, roll call please on the 44-256.
Mr. Bill,
Excuse me, before, The motion was made, that was for 2025-5, correct?
Yes.
Good. Sorry.
You're
Roll
okay.
call.
Mr. Bill Harris,
No.
Mr. Crittenden,
No.
Mr. Jesse,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
No.
Mr. Don Harris.
No. Motion is not approved. Miss Anne Marie, you have a question?
Yeah, I'm kind of looking at Heather. Is this correct, that I don't have to bring this back again, right? That this, now that it's failed, we don't have to bring it back anymore?
Not unless it's requested.
Okay.
The board has taken action, the motion failed. The motion failed.
Thank you. I just wanted to verify. Very good. Next item.
Yes, it's you. I think. Uh, 8, 5, funds. Okay, item B, VPSA Hub and Spoke Project, Anne Marie, pages 122 to 129.
Thank you. My next item is very cool, and I have this PowerPoint more or less to include with it. Well, our county has control of the 3 convenience centers. Those fall underneath me. Our solid waste is managed by VIPSA. VIPSA is a regional governmental organization established in 1989 to provide regional management of solid waste and recycling. The members are 10 cities and counties in Southwest Virginia, including Essex, King and Queen, Matthews, King William, James City County, Williamsburg, York, Poquoson, Hampton, and us. VIPSA is effective. I think it's a very effective process. They provide great services, and we actively participate in VIPSA with me or Matt as your representative. Anyway, the purpose of this presentation is just to give you a feeling about a project that is actively being discussed and quite possibly to be proposed in the future. As you know, right now, our convenience centers all collect, and this is going to be primarily about recycling. All locations collect mixed paper, cardboard, commingled materials. The material is collected and then hauled out of the area to recycling processors. So that's what we got there. What this leaves us with, though, is 2 very inefficient gaps. First, cardboard containers are carried by a hauler. So those are the flattened cardboard that you leave, the corrugated cardboard, to a reseller baler. Bear with me, not all of this is easy to say. A reseller baler, which is about 2 hours from here. I can't remember if it's Newport News or Virginia Beach, but they bind them with a metal wire, and then they transport it to the recycler, which is the mill, where they actually do something with it. So see the inefficiency that we take it 2 hours away to somebody who then hauls it just to West Point. And whereas instead of us just hauling it to West Point. That's number 1 efficiency. The second gap is mixed recyclables. The containers are carried away the same way. You see those big haulers where you dump, I know we all do this, we dump our plastics and metals into the big container, the commingled container. They get hauled away to a processor probably maybe 2.5 hours away. So a truck comes to Deltaville, as far away as you can get, comes to Deltaville, picks up a container and hauls it more than 2 hours away, then comes back, goes to maybe Hartfield or King and Queen or somewhere else, and that's what they do, is they haul those big things. So depending on where the vendor is, and that's all they do. So the idea of a hub and spoke is to carry our recyclables, that would be the cardboards and those mixed materials, to one single location in our area. Let me see if I can do this. In our area, so this is the area that we're served, basically one place where they will either be baled for sale where the cardboard could be baled, or the mixed materials, and this is cool, will be smashed into one big container. So right now, we've got them all in that giant container, but that's loose, if you smashed it into one container, you could fit 8 to 10 of those one containers into a semi-hauler. So that's what they're proposing that we do. So the mixed materials is loose in the one container, but if it's compressed, many containers can fit in the same space. If we bale the cardboard, and that is taking those big the corrugated cardboard, and we bale it ourselves, again, at our own site, Many recycling vendors will actually send their truck to us and pick it up. So we wouldn't even have, we would save on transportation costs. So again, if we do this all, we would have fewer trips to the far ends of the state. We might even get better deals on our materials. Let's see, I think I skipped something up. The short-term benefits, we'll go with that. Our reduced transportation costs, saving labor, fuel, and truck maintenance. They're also coming up with an idea that if we have this site, you can see it poking out below. If we have this site, they can start having a consistent message to students and to groups such as the Kiwanis or the Rotaries or whatever, giving a consistent message to people about how to recycle, and this is what we're doing to recycle. They can actually see their materials going to the balers, going to the big-time recyclers. Long-term is going to be better pricing and service from vendors, extending our vehicle life because they won't be used so much. And again, as you all know, we continue to have problems getting truck drivers. So again, it'll be solving a problem with that long-term getting drivers. This last page shows how simple this construction is. It is very simple. It is simply going to be a building. You can see they'll have a baler. They'll be hauling all these mixed materials and smashing them up and sending them out. And these would be a very simple process, but it's not free. So my expectation is that within the next year, VIPSA, that would be our board, our VIPSA board, where we have a representative, will be coming back to these individual agencies and saying, we want you all to participate in this capital construction. So that's all I had. I just didn't want to shock you for the future. As the board chair always says, please don't surprise me.
We don't like surprises around
So
here.
that is the extent of my presentation on that.
I got a question for you. This last page, it shows this, you were just showing that as an example. That's not,
This, right, I think this is one's out of Ohio.
okay.
The lady that did the one in Ohio, she gave us these pictures.
And we wouldn't be, would we be looking at starting that type of business here?
No, it would probably, going back to, I'm guessing, forgive me for not knowing my counties very well, but I would guess it would probably be more, I don't know, it could be ours, but they would be looking for something closer to 17 or a major thoroughfare.
Yeah,
think
I can help you out.
And
Last we looked at this, Mr. Chairman, I was chairman of VIPSA, and we were looking at a site in King and Queen.
And who's going to fund that site if that were to come about?
All of the hosts or
All the participants that
cooperating,
would be
yes.
using it would be
Thank you.
in,
Minus the peninsula counties, because they wouldn't be using it.
do we
But I
have
think
any
they already
idea?
have something down on
So,
the peninsula.
do we have any idea what this, or is that forthcoming?
Forthcoming.
Thank you.
I asked today, I did reach out to Jennifer, the new director. Did you know that Jennifer was named director? Okay.
I had a little birdie tell me that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
you know that David Magnet, our former executive director, retired, and the second in command over there took over, so she's real good. The next part, I just want to address one more thing. So you can see that this is only part of VIPSA. So this only addresses our particular area of VIPSA. The next part is even bigger, and it's going to be more of a recycling for stuff that nobody wants. Tires, mattresses, boats, household chemicals, EV batteries, solar panels, maybe even a MRF. So again, that would be all of us. You heard me talk about just our 6 counties in this, but VIPSA is 10 agencies, and so that would be more addressing all 10 agencies. Bigger project, bigger monies, a little bit further out, but I don't have enough information to discuss it. I think it's very exciting. I can't believe I think solid waste is exciting, I'm sorry. But I think that with the things forthcoming is something that you all need to be aware of. So, thank you.
Is the cost now currently for the hauling part of hauling stuff, you mentioned Virginia Beach or whatever, hauling from there and then having to turn around and rehaul somewhere else, is that a charge that comes to the county through VIPSA?
Yes, it is, that is correct. We have and I'm sorry, I normally know this, I'm going to say our contract with VIPSA is about $980,000, and that would include all of the transportation for solid waste, disposal of solid waste, plus transfer of the recyclables, offset by any revenues, which isn't much, that we get from the recyclables. Cardboard, by the way, if you hear me talk, cardboard is the best. Be sure to recycle your cardboard and your aluminum.
Thank
I'm
you,
sorry,
Anne
that
Marie.
was my pitch, sorry.
Thank you very much, and thanks for bringing it so we can have a chance to think about it a little bit before we see another presentation on that.
You'll get a good one by the people that are involved, but
Yeah,
That presentation was good, but I like to see numbers,
I
you
like
know.
to see the numbers
And, you know,
too.
just like
So do I.
about $1 million, you're saying it costs in the county, right?
Yes, sir.
And, okay, yeah, we won't see.
If my memory serves, Reggie, that's one of the reasons why it didn't percolate before. We kind of got to arguing about how much this should be and how much that should be. Not the counties, but the board itself, the VIPSA board. There was quite a discussion about how much of a recycling facility we needed and how much cost. Now, that was, I think, pre-pandemic, so I can imagine what the cost would be now.
Recycling, you know, is, basically it's big time. You know, if you get in and do things that's right, I just, you know, just wonder what we had and, you know, what our part gonna be in it because, you know, we want some, you know, return on investment. Because it also says somewhere in the report that it's gonna definitely increase. So now we're over $1 million, you know. I'm just saying we gotta do something with it. I'm not fighting against it, but just show us some numbers so we can see some gain because I know gain is in it because it's recycled and you gotta use recycle now. And just about everything you do, you got recycle. So if you're in it, you wanna know your piece. Please don't be like Repco gonna do us on the battery storage, but I'll wait till later on that one.
Yeah, kind of globally, when we last discussed it, we were still engaged in a lot of trade in recyclables with China. But China changed that policy as part of the big trade wars that were going back and forth to where they would only accept certain recycling and then only purified plastics, things of that nature. You couldn't have any like cross-contamination, different types of plastic, different types of paper and all that. That's why these recycling centers gained a little bit of popularity because if you separate your recyclings, you can get a better price. Then China got to the point where they weren't even taking that. They were keeping everything internal. And as I understood and I asked the question in one of our board meetings, well, there wouldn't seem to be a lot of value in shipping plastic bottles 14,000 miles across the ocean. But what else do you do with all those empty shipping containers that they ship to us and we don't ship stuff back? So I think that was part of it. A lot of empty shipping containers getting filled up with recycling so they can reuse it and justify bringing those shipping containers back with something in them. But that may have changed, probably has since then.
Because, you know, the plastic, I think years ago, they was talking about plastic, trying to get plastic out of everything. And I guess they changed their mind, but somebody thought it was profitable to use plastic. But I don't know, even at work, you couldn't use sandwiches and stuff, man, they want plastic, get it in different stuff. So recycling is good, you just gonna make sure we're on the upper end of it. You know, presentation is good, but they don't pay no money at the end of the day.
Right. Any other discussion on the topic? If not, Anne Marie, you're back on the podium, please.
Good afternoon. The only application we received this month is for an open position we received an application for Iris Lassiter as an appointment to the, easy for me to say, for the Wetlands Board, and she is from the Saluda District, right? Yes, Saluda District. Oh, she said, I thought they said, hold on, we've got to, we want to make sure we're in the right district, because she said she was Saluda.
Where is she?
It says Pintail Trail.
Wake.
So Wake is not Saluda.
No, but I think we had chatted about that unless there was a, unless there was a compelling reason
That's
because
right.
she's not in Saluda. And I think you said if the board was okay with that, we could put her on the Wetlands Board, which she has requested to be on, correct?
That's right.
And we have had that vacancy for at least 2 months that we have not been able to fill, correct? May have been longer than 2 months, but I know it's been at least 2 months.
I had a gentleman contact me about the interest on being on it, and he contacted the county, and he was told that it was for Saluda only, so he didn't put in for it. I don't know where that leaves us, but I don't remember the gentleman's name at this time.
Was he looking for the Wetlands Board?
Yes, his experience was in something along those lines, but I don't recall everything.
Do you know his name?
I've got an email. I can certainly get it.
Okay.
We can certainly postpone this and then have them both.
Say that again?
If you want to postpone this and we can get that, reach out
Well,
to
I
him.
feel the gentleman reached out to the county, and we told him he wasn't in the right district, and now if we appoint someone that's not in the right district without giving
Yes.
him the opportunity for us
Yes.
to review, I don't think we,
Absolutely.
Yes, yeah.
So we do need to table that unless there's an objection. And if you can get Bill's email address for this person, we will send something out to him. I would also ask that if that's the case, it'd kind of be nice to know if Ms. Laster would be interested in the Board of Zoning Appeals, or if this gentleman would be, which one is he really looking for, and then we can make a decision from there. Does that work? Anne Marie,
Yes,
does
sir.
that work for you?
Yes, sir, I was just reading to make sure, yes.
And then I guess we would have to do whatever we need to do here to approve the fact that it's not a Saluda district person that's filling that. Am I correct?
Right, we'll take care, yes, we'll bring that back next month.
Wonderful.
Yep, we will bring it back next month after we get from Mr. Harris, the gentleman who is also interested in serving. Thank you for that information.
And Dave, just real quick, I should know this as a recovering planning director, but is the Wetlands Board at large? Well, I mean, I just think we need to clarify that. Do you have to be in the district to serve on Wetlands Board? Is it at large, or is it, district-based?
I recall it being
I
preferenced.
think we've had this discussion years ago when I first came here.
Right.
I believe this is more of a gentleman's and a lady's agreement that
Uh-huh.
that
Okay.
they would pick in district. I mean, generally, you try to stay in district. But I had discussions with several board members. We had a lot of difficulty when this goes back to when Carlton Revere was on the board, where some of these districts, if you take that line between Wilton Creek and Mill Creek Road, the district keeps floating around back and forth, and a lot of concentration of populations right there. So we've had folks going back and forth a little bit. And I think currently we have somebody out of district in that area, for the Wetlands Board, that is. So, and the Wetlands Board, it's a technical board now. It's not like it was 20 years ago. I know there was a lot of political things involved with it. That board is very efficient at this time. It's not really it's representing the county as a whole. It's representing the ordinance. It doesn't necessarily have the turmoil that maybe some of the previous boards had, with the marina, let's say, expansion. So that board operates very efficiently, and I think it could continue to operate very efficiently with somebody out of district if you could not find somebody. So and your BZA, those are, I believe, I'm not sure, but I think a person could probably serve on both. I think they have very similar functions. I don't think there's any conflict of interest on it. We'd have to research it.
Maybe we need to look
and
at
you
that.
probably don't want to overload
I think
one person,
I can't remember, but I think the Board of Zoning Appeals only meets like maybe twice a year.
as needed.
Oh, as needed?
Yeah, as needed.
Right.
It could be frequent. You could have a 2-3 month stretch where you meet every month, and then they might go 6 months without meeting. So it depends on their workload.
Okay, go ahead.
when we come back to review this, any kind of way just for these two, we could have a list of where everyone that's currently on the board, what district they're in?
Sure.
I wouldn't want us to triple up somewhere without,
Yeah, you wouldn't want 3 from one
I
district.
think we should
yeah.
look at it and
Yeah.
still try to stay in the
Stay
flavor
away
of
from
having it
that.
spread across the county as much as
Understood.
possible.
Understood.
One of the
Yep.
things that we always try to do as staff and continue to do is when we have a citizen that's interested in something and they have questions, of course, we answer their questions, but we encourage them to get involved with the citizen participation. Bill and I, we've worked with a gentleman in Wake about the boat ramp. And, I'm recruiting him heavily to put in a citizen interest form because I think he'd be an asset for the county. He's got a wealth of experience. That's how you meet these folks. If they come up and ask questions about things, hey, would you like to join us? We need citizen volunteers to staff these committees. And anything the board can do to help us keep a good resume pool of those active is much appreciated.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know why the sudden downtick in Saluda interest. That used to be, all we would get is Saluda District for everything.
Do you think maybe it's because they're 5-year appointments? Is that too much of a commitment?
They always have the option to get all.
Okay.
I mean, they can always, back out if it's not convenient or whatnot.
Bring that information, we'll bring that information back. Thank you.
That'd be wonderful. Yeah, let's go ahead and cross all the Ts and dot all the Is and reach out to those people and see, what the flavor is from them about either one person serving on both, or we get 2 people and, it's nice to have a representative from each district. But that position's been open, and I've asked several people that are still laughing as they're running to the car about serving on that.
Yeah.
And I think, I can't speak totally to the past, but it is decisions that on setting on those for the county as a whole, not necessarily for Saluda or Deltaville
Right.
or whatever. It's nice to have representation from that, but those boards serve for the whole county. Go ahead, Wayne.
No, I just know in the past, it was by district most of the time, both of those boards.
Yeah, and we're
Yeah,
trying to do that if
That's
we
what we had
can.
in the past, but if you can't get nobody in your district,
Right.
then you're gonna have to go outside. So, you still have somebody that can work on it, that will want to work on the district. Because no use in having somebody that don't want to be on the board,
Exactly.
just because you're in the district.
Right.
It doesn't serve any purpose.
Okay.
So just in summation, we're going to, as Mr. Harris asked, we'll get a list of these boards and commission, where everybody is and that type of thing. Also, keep in mind, it gets a little confusing because you have the Saluda electoral district, and you have the Saluda magisterial district. And I think there's some areas, you get over into Reggie's district where you're actually, you're actually going into Pine Top, and some of it's the Saluda electoral district because of the magisterial districts stay where they are. There's only 3 magisterial districts, Saluda, Pine Top, and Jamaica. But we have obviously 5 electoral districts, and those electoral districts shift with population censuses. So sometimes things can bleed into other districts, and it gets kind of odd. And really, the public really gets confused about it, and I get questioned when we have advertisements. That's not in the Saluda district. Well, it is in the Saluda magisterial district. I advertise magisterial district rather than electoral districts. So, anyway, just to add that in.
Thank you, Mr. Kretz.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Walker, either you or Anne Marie, however you guys want to share that up, or administrative updates, please.
I'm going to kind of take this a little out of order and get to the main event first, and then I have a couple of items that came from the August 27th work session. You have in your packet a copy of Forest Resource Management's timber report on several of the properties that we were looking at. This is kind of a preliminary, is it going to be worth our while type of report, give a cursory look at the timber present, a ballpark estimation on whether it's worth the time and effort to timber it, and or what activities we may want to engage in. I'm still waiting on the Forestry Service management plan, and given this report actually helps me prepare a bid along with the request to the Forestry Service for a management plan. So just real quick, if I may, I'll bring up my friend Google Earth, or the county GIS maps first. The site that seems to have the most potential is the site just east of Saluda. If I can get this big screen, hulking screen out of the way. This, of course, is the old Saluda treatment plant property that was acquired back in the early 2Ks for a potential treatment plant. And then the board will recall, we purchased the Lattimore property next door. These two properties together are mentioned as tax map 2751 and 52A, Route 33 west of Cook's Corner. They seem to have a good deal of potential, good value, good candidate for harvest at this time. So as we were discussing briefly, there kind of ebbs and flows when you should harvest property. You want to hit it at peak. This may be at peak or near it. And, the only detractor that I read in the report, and you can read it for yourself, is there's a stream running through the center of it, and it's got some topographical areas which may be a little bit of a challenge. And then next down the list is the property that we're in discussions with the school board on, the property south of 33 in Cook's Corner. That one's not so good, and that actually surprised me. I felt like that timber may be in better shape than the other, but apparently not. And you can read Mr. Reed's comments in the middle paragraph under tax map 27123A. This is also the parcel that we're in discussion with the school board over. I have a feeling we're going to be talking about it in the schools county finance committee meeting this month about how we may want to proceed with that. And then last but not least is the Topping property, which is the one everyone kind of ascribes to the county's ownership because we have timbered it before. And of course, it's come in as not quite ripe, maybe another 5 years or so to evaluate for harvest. We do have a forestry management plan on that property.
We're talking about the airport?
Yes, sir. Let me scroll over there. The wooded portion of the airport.
Yes.
Yeah. Right here. Yeah, it does that sometimes until I hit escape. It's just, there we go. Well, no. Try to get it off. I don't know. Try to get this screen off. Do this. There we go. Okay, that gives you an idea. And of course, the timbered area is the area seen with the new trees coming up. And I want to think that was timbered back in the early 2Ks. Yeah. We have the logging road and everything, the logging entrance and all that. So it's my intention just to give you this report. We didn't pay a lot for this report. It was meant to be a very cursory look at the properties to see if they're worth our while. If it's the board's intention to have me pursue this, I would recommend we timber the Saluda tract and maybe wait on the others.
Y'all want to take action on that now, or you want to think about it and we discuss it in October? What do you want to do?
Let me move back to that
The
one.
13 acres east of Cook's Corner,
Mhm.
they're saying in this report that doesn't look like it's going to increase in value much.
It may be past prime. I can call John and talk to him about it.
It says it appears to be in fair health.
Yeah, stocking is somewhat low due to dieback and wind throw over the years. I don't know what dieback or wind throw means, but I'll find out.
Well, this is, I guess, what I'm starting on. Due to the poor quality of this timber, it has marginal value, but is not a good candidate to continue to grow from a timber management standpoint.
Right.
So what I'm wondering is if that's something we would want to address.
I mean, we could timber it too.
I mean, if they're saying our value's not going to do anything, and we get anything for it to get it to where it does start growing back to some value, we'd only add value to our land and value to the citizens of them.
Yeah.
I think we should look at that. That's-
We could, and I can put it out to bid once we control it, when the schools give it back to us. The other thought I had, Bill, was we may want to preserve some of the old growth timber there in case we do try to develop it, some kind of commercial or some kind of use, so you have your landscaping already built in. I was somewhat surprised with that verdict, because I felt like that would be the bang for the buck.
Yeah, and they're saying it's not going to. Okay.
We're talking about Lattimore and the piece that we own, correct?
Yeah. Well, Bill and I are talking about the Cook's Corner property now, the one on the screen, behind the dog shelter. But the valuable one, according to this report, where the good value is the Saluda property and the Lattimore property,
Okay.
or the wooded portion thereof.
Right. The property that we're talking about right now that we conveyed to the school, we really can't talk about that much right this second.
Not till they convey it back to us.
Number one.
Right.
But the Lattimore property and the other property, now the thought, you've been on the discussion, so you know a little bit. We're looking at the possibility of getting the EDA involved in trying to develop that track, the Lattimore property and the other county piece. However, my personal opinion is, if we're going to timber it, we timber it, the county, and then we turn that track over to the EDA for what they may be able to develop. My thought additionally, too, would be that you do not clear cut that, you select cut it.
Select cut?
Yep. It just will be more, I think, advantageous for potentially what the EDA would have to be able to develop.
Right.
And we could, after the timber is potentially cut, we could look at turning that over to the EDA at that point. You got time to think about it. So think about it a little bit, and we'll talk some more. What do we want to direct Mr. Walker to do at this juncture with any of that property, or particularly the one there at Saluda?
One other quick thing, Mr. Chairman, and then I'll bow out of the discussion. I have learned one thing from some of the timber guys. Sometimes timing is everything. If you have a lot of topography on a site, wetlands, whatnot, or wetland, I won't say necessarily wetlands, but land that gets wet, if you wait at a dry time of year where they can get in there and cut drier properties, they're not going to cut the buffers, of course, then they may get a little bit better price, because they can get in there and do more and not bog down.
I think we should work everything to our advantage. Definitely, that's a good thought, yes.
Yep. So I'm happy to work with the Forestry Service on a management plan for this property. Hopefully, we'll have something soon and develop a request for bids for these two properties, if that's the desire, or the school property too, if we're able to acquire.
No, school property should not be in that discussion at
Okay.
this point.
Well, I'll do these two then. Select cut.
Right. Okay?
We want to only worry about the select cut up close to the road, because you get back in there, the ravine and stuff and everything, I'm not sure you're going to be able to develop it. But up by the road, I understand what you're saying, yeah, most definitely.
Okay, so continue to ask Mr. Walker to pursue that project and come up with what we need.
Well, going back to what Bill's question was, real quick, if it's the board's desire, Dave and I have got to go out and mark these property lines and mark a buffer back from them, and then work with the Forestry Service on what needed a riparian buffer or what may not. We could mark the timbering line further back on the site so you maintain a wooded buffer on the road, if that's desirable.
Would that suffice?
Yeah, I'm fine with either one.
We can do that. About 100 feet, Dave? It's good enough for Chesapeake Bay Act.
Yeah, you want to preserve your 100-foot, should I come forward?
Well, they can't hear you if you don't, at least not in perpetuity.
Anne Marie, you have the GIS up in that layer list to the left. That's your mapping list. See that, there you go. there should be an RPA. So you have RPA buffers on that property. So timbering code will let you go deeper into that buffer per forestry standards. 50 feet. And they'll even let you go into the 25 and do, if you see something you like, they can actually take it. The problem is when you convert it back, you're supposed to restore those buffers. So if we ever did a development plan with it, we might get stuck paying to put stuff back in, according to the code. So just want us to kind of keep that in the back of our head.
That's a good point, Dave. Thank you for that.
So we don't want to get, you might be best just to leave that buffer like it is. And then if that, the developer or us doesn't have to pay to put it back. As long as it's kept in timber, you don't have to. But if you ever convert it to a commercial use, then you're supposed to put it back. Of course, it may
Just
revegetate itself.
replanting it in pines, would that be considered putting it back or not? No.
Yeah, you could redo, you could put it back in forestry. I mean, it'll naturally reforest itself anyway.
You get volunteers.
So if development's 5 years down the road, it'll be grown up so thick, it won't matter anyway. But, if, let's say you were lucky and sold it tomorrow the day after you timbered it, and you cut into it deep, you'd have to, theoretically, you're supposed to put, according to the code, you're supposed to put it back.
If we plan to let it naturally reseed itself, would that meet the,
Yeah, sure.
we
As
just
long
would
as
have to
we're
state that?
Right, as long as we're start following forestry guidance, in which would be to let that reforest itself.
Sounds like we could work through that then.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I just want everybody to be
Oh, no,
aware
thank you.
of
Very
it.
good information,
Yeah, you
yes.
put little things in the back. The only way it would hit us if somebody came in the day after we timber it and want to say, hey, I want to buy it and develop it.
And then they want to build and develop an RPA buffer.
Yeah,
They the landscape.
Yeah, right, so, so anyway, if it's 5 years from now, we know how, we get good reforestation in this area. You can see it whenever they do timbering, we get quick regrowth in this area.
Thanks, Dave.
I think maybe before, I fully support the idea of going in there and marking everything and deciding what the buffer would be and everything. But I think before we actually would commit to having anything cut in there, if we're going to be giving that property to the EDA, it might be a good idea to discuss it with them just to make sure that what plans they may have in there wouldn't be affected by timbering.
And just one quick thing to Matt's point about marking it, I did find some pretty decent surveys on it. Pretty good surveyor did it, so it looks like the lines should be visible now, but we'll go freshen them up, so, anyway.
Thanks, Dave. Okay, and real quick, before I get into the guiding principles, just a couple of quick things. During the August 27th work session, the board spoke to the desire maybe to tour the Whitestone sewer system. I reached out to the town manager in Whitestone. The 12th or the 13th in the afternoon, preferably the 12th is best for them. Now, if it's later in the month, the Bowman engineer could be present. He is not going to be available that week. But if the afternoon of the 12th is sufficient, I can let Pat Freer, the town manager over in Whitestone, know. Yet to be determined how many people want to go on that tour. I know we would just need to let the media know. So if that time and date works for the board, or if there's another suggestion, I think the 9th, Ken Turner preliminarily looked at possibly the 9th. But I think later in the week is usually better for most people. 2 p.m. in the afternoon. Yep,
I'm fine with that.
on the 12th.
I am not good for the 12th, but that's okay. If Bill can be there and somebody else, I think that would be fine.
I'm good for the 12th.
You are? Okay.
Okay?
And we planned for the whole board to go, so, I mean, more than two can go.
Yeah, we just need to let the media know, and Larry's here.
And where is the meeting?
Well, we could meet at the courthouse, ride over together in the expedition, or divide up in cars and
Okay.
drive over. Well, I
I'm
guess
gonna look at the 12th, but I think I have a problem with that date.
my plan was to try to meet Pat at the town hall and then go from there and let him take us wherever he wants to take us. And of course, the media is invited too if you want to come, but it is what it is. And again, if that day doesn't work for everybody, let me know. We got other days in September we can do it.
Okay.
What time did you say?
2 p.m. in the afternoon? Not good?
It sounds like we have 3. Okay.
Okay. Well, for those of you who can't go, Don, Reggie, do you want me to try to schedule something separate for?
No, leave it there, and then if we can get to it, I'm just a question mark right now.
Okay, all right. All right, very good. Wings, wheels, and keels.
Hold
Richard,
on.
I'm sorry.
On the 10th, there's a meeting, lunch meeting in Urbana,
That is correct.
correct?
Yeah, that's a good segue. I have that on my list of things. We have got a preliminary proposal from the town of Urbana regarding the DMV. The lunch crew liaison committee between the board and the town council plan to meet for lunch the afternoon of the 10th. I'm also going to be doing some riding with our maintenance buildings and grounds department that day, the ride-along stuff. So we're going to be meeting for lunch to discuss that proposal and see how they want to move forward. And hopefully we'll have more to the board in October if that goes well. Thank you, Don.
I'm going to be present for that. You'll be present for that. Anne Marie, I think?
Yep.
Maybe? Attorney, are you going to be present for that or not?
I didn't think we would need the attorney, but
Okay, one of you other, I can have one more board member if y'all would like to be present for that discussion on the DMV
regarding DMV,
on the 10th,
it'd be lunchtime.
lunchtime. It's a lunch.
What do we got it on the calendar at? Emery, can you check?
to 11:30 on September 10th.
Beat the crowds.
Where?
At Jimmy's.
Because my original didn't have a place.
I think we decided Jimmy's. Yeah.
Yeah, it's next Tuesday. You want to go? All right,
Okay, Reggie and Don.
okay.
Very good, thank you. All right, Wings, Wheels, and Keels is an event the county's been having for years. We've always applied for a state grant to help, I guess it's a grant to help build awareness and have festivals, different things like that for the promotional grants for the airports. This year, we had it in the budget at $6,000. I don't think we've ever put it in a budget for more than $6,000, but there's a total match available of $10,000, which means we can leverage $10,000 from the state if we match it dollar for dollar. Now, it's my understanding that Friends of Humble Field has done some, I think 2,000,
Roughly.
thereabouts.
It depends on what we get in the budget, what they get in the budget for their.
And it's
for
all,
what they get for
yes, thank you, Richard. I remember it coming up several times, and the board's always kind of decided whether you wanted to throw a little bit more at it. I'll go back and verify that, but I recall Betty discussing it a couple times. We had it in the budget at 6. If it's the board's desire to leverage a little bit more of the state's money, we can throw in a little bit more. I think next year we'll probably just start out with a budget at 10 grand. Yeah, I thought,
That's what I'm trying to find out,
yeah.
whether or not
and-
I bumped it up to 10.
Right, I know the airport budget was very substantially similar to last year's. We didn't cut it. What's the board's pleasure? I know y'all don't like surprises, but Wings, Wheels, and Keels is the 28th of September, and I don't like leaving state money on the table. And if the Friends will kick in some money, maybe y'all want to kick in a little bit more too, so we can leverage more of those state funds.
So we're talking roughly $2,000 more dollars then?
Yeah, if the Friends of Hummel Field can come up with the other 2,000. That would get us the entirety of the 4, that would in turn give us the entirety of the match from the state.
Okay, and I guess for Richard, maybe you can speak to this real quick. So let's say we up the amount from 6 to 8, which ties in for the grant of what they'll match. And that grant's not a 80/20, it's
That's a
what,
50/50 grant.
okay, and the excess money that you potentially would have over and above what goes on with Wings and Wheels, where does that money go?
Friends of Hummel, if there's money left over, Friends of Hummel will meet, and some of the charities will divvy the money up with some of the charities in the county to put that money back to the county, or put the money to the charities in the county. We don't retain that money back in Friends of Hummel from year to year. Now, I think we were at a budget deficit a couple of years ago, and I think we finally paid that off back to the county, if I'm not mistaken.
That's not it, sorry.
And what control do we have as a board over where that money goes? Or is that something the airport has just always decided the excess where it
Well,
goes?
that's Friends of Hummel LLC. That's not even airport. That's not a county organization. That's just the Friends of Hummel LLC.
But this money that we're allocating isn't through Friends of Hummel.
No, this goes directly, it's an allocation. Friends of Hummel spends the money, tells the county how much or sends the bills to the county for what we've allocated and what they spend. And the county writes the check and then is reimbursed for what we spend or what the county spends up to $10,000 on a 50/50 basis, dollar for dollar match. If they spend more than that, Friends of Hummel comes up with the actuals. If there's money left over, then Friends of Hummel will take that money and put it back into the county, and put it back into the charities in the county. I mean, they've donated to the Boy Scouts from the past, I think they donated to the Crier Center a couple of times.
Yeah, I get them, and I know they do a good job. My only point is, we're getting grant money, and the county's deciding to increase money that, over and above what we've already allocated. So at the end of the process, when it's all done, and there's excess money over there, we should have at least a yay or nay in that, wouldn't you think?
Well, I'm your representative on Friends of Hummel.
I'm just
So
asking.
you tell me what the board desires to do with the excess money, and I will definitely relay that to them, and I feel sure they'll do something.
Well, or
Well-
your recommendations of what y'all think it should be.
Right.
But if I got skin in the game, I want to have skin in where it
Sure.
goes if it's excess.
And we're perfectly, I mean, as far as I remember, they struggle to find people to spend money on. And if the county has a recommendation of where they want to send that money, they'll be more than happy to send the money where the county wants. I fully
I
believe
just think
that.
it needs to be some mutual discussion.
I'm fully.
I don't know that I have a big, deal about where necessarily it goes, but if the county's giving you money, and we got grant money coming in, that we're trying to up that amount
Right.
for what we get, then we at least ought to.
Right. There's usually not a whole lot of money left over,
I know.
but if there is money
You
left
follow
over.
what I'm saying,
Yeah,
though.
if there is money left over from all this and we make a profit off of this,
Okay.
I'll be more than happy to come back in October and tell you what's left over and where we're sitting.
Okay.
Would it be too soon to have Jamie and Friends of the Hummel come in and kind of give a recap of how the event went on September 28th, on October 1st, along with you and Mark, when you give your update for the airport?
I believe that'd be probably fine, just fine. We can
Yeah.
ask Jim our treasurer, the treasurer to
Yeah.
come back for what they've got. We can come pretty close to what's over there.
And they can talk to you about the budget and how they're spending the promotional funds.
I think it's a good idea. So,
I got
go
one
ahead.
question. If the money that the county puts up, do they get that back? Do they get that back, some of the money in the profit? Other words, if we put up $5,000 as a county, which basically is taxpayers' money, and we allow them to get another $5,000. So it's no profit made on the county up until you pass $5,000.
Right.
Then after you pass the money that the county had put up, then y'all want to do what y'all want to do with that.
That's what I think has been
That's-
happening in the past.
I'm understanding that right?
That's what's been
Okay.
happening in the past. We've been donating that money off, because we don't carry, but
Right. I'm
maybe-
just saying the county gets back what they put up so you could get the
Right,
grant.
we pay back to the
But
county.
that's the
We
main
pay back to the
thing.
county, and that's what happened the last couple of years. We've paid, when we have extra money or have money coming back, we give that money back to the county
Right,
to cover that.
okay.
I'm probably looking at this wrong, but I've always thought of it kind of as the county's fair in many ways. We don't have a fair, but that's kind of our version of one, because we
And
have the airport and,
And that's one way, it's, when I apply to the Army to bring the helicopters in, I do say that this is sponsored and underwritten by the County of Middlesex and the Virginia Department of Aviation, and that's one reason why they come in.
Okay, so do we want to leave it at 6, or do you want to bump it to 8, or what do you want to do, board members?
If I may, we did budget it this year for the 8, so I can show you, that's what I was trying to pull up, and I'm sorry if I've,
yeah, I don't
I'm
know where the
struggling.
6 came from then.
well, well, it was old. So, Matt, what we budgeted for is the full, for 16,000, assuming half from the
That's half
county.
grant, yeah.
And half from the
So
grant.
we've got it budgeted at 8?
Yeah.
Okay,
And last year, I want to say that I only submitted about 14,500. So I left money on the table last year, or we all left money on the table last year.
okay. Well, so it's not 6? Okay, well then, they're very good. We don't need to ask for anything then.
Well, thank you, Richard, for coming in and
they
talking to
could
us.
all be that good.
and, Yeah, we appreciate
Yeah.
it.
Where did-
I will spend money later on.
And I apologize to the board. Richard and I had a quick conversation in my office about 5 minutes before the meeting started, and, well, we only budgeted 6. I'm like, okay.
And I'm
We'll
sorry,
figure
I
that
wasn't available because I kind of remembered part
You're
of this.
running around.
That's okay, it's all good.
Well, the last thing I have is probably the best, and that is the guiding principles that we've been working on. I've been working with Bill on this. He gave me some pretty good language to use as a base, and you have in your packet some of my takeoffs from Bill's base that I think edited look pretty good, but we wanted to give the board this latest draft, and I think Bill has got some key words highlighted in color, so that helps out. My comments in parentheses below tax base and economics, when I was doing this, I was thinking to myself, maybe there was a term or some fashion that we could combine those two into one and simplify it, and that's just some of the thoughts that I had based on key points when you're talking about tax base and economics. Don't ask me to wax philosophical, because here it comes. There's midnight language right there. But we have the staff edits, which are based on Bill's input. Bill gave us a good starting point, and we kind of polished that a little bit, and we gave you 3 options. And we're here to discuss it, so there you go. Thanks. Yeah, and Anne Marie, you want to bring this up? Or mine? What do you, that?
Did you also want to give the board, go over all their other stuff too? They can look at it in conjunction.
Yeah. Anyway, that's what's in the packet.
Okay, I need a little further explanation here. I see some blue colors, some green colors, some yellow. Which color is whose?
Go ahead, Bill.
All right, I appreciate staff's work, and they're doing a good job putting this together and everything. I do feel that maybe moving a little bit too quick. And in the essence of that, and I talked with Randy about this some too, when he said about a list. This is what we're looking at as our guiding principle statement. And in that, there are 6 terms that basically came out of a comprehensive plan. And I kind of think the board needs a little bit of time to look at those 6 as health, safety, and welfare. I hope that we all can almost can commit to those 3 to be in there. And the rural character, tax base, and economics. And I think tax base and economics, those two is what Matt's having a little bit of time, as well as I have, of putting them together. So I would want the board, I think, to look and see if those are the 6 words that or a list that we want to use to compile our guiding principle statement. And the reason that the colors are in there is just to exemplify those 6 words. And none of those have all 6 of them in there. So we need some help. So I kind of think the board just needs to kind of take this in a little bit.
Okay, now I understand.
Look at the 6 words and see, no, we really need 7, we really need 5. The thing is, I've done this a few times, and we don't want specifics, okay? But we want to encompass everything, okay? So when you look at it, like I say, not specific, but we got to encompass everything, the whole county and how we govern, all right? So I think it would be best that we look and see if those 6 words or statements, however you want to say it, rule character, is what we're comfortable with. And if the board is comfortable with that, then we would look at putting them into some of the examples here that they've gotten. Again, I appreciate y'all putting all this together and everything and all, and the colors, so we can see the wording in there. But I just think the board, out of respect to everyone, they need to have a little bit of time just to mull it over if those are the right words.
Yeah, it was our intention just to give a draft and.
Yeah, thank you. You've done a great job.
Yeah, thank you, thank you.
Most of the time, you have a facilitator, and they're up there, and this thing draws out until finally, I mean, it's a drawn-out process.
Well, and you are the master of segues, because that is a good segue into, we had discussed briefly the potential of a November or December retreat for the board, and I don't want to steal Randy's thunder. I think he's going to bring up something in board comments, so I'll just circle back to that. That may be right in line with what you were talking about with a group facilitator, helping the board really decide what their strategic vision should be. Yep.
Go ahead, what you got?
Well, I was going to just suggest that perhaps it might be interesting, well, useful to create, or not us create individually, but for the board to employ or to use an outside person or agency or firm to help us create a strategic plan for the board. My understanding, I spoke to someone who has some experience in this. He said that typically what happens is someone from that board or whoever would come and talk to each one of us 5 individually to find out what our priorities are, what our concerns are, and how we feel about taxation, how we feel about development, and what our vision is individually. And then combine all of that together into a workable plan that we can all follow. So when we'll know exactly what it is, what our priorities are as a board and as a county, and how we want to approach those. And his recommendation was don't do it in-house. He said it's really better to have. He said that in one instance, at least, there was a university that had, as part of their graduate program, I think, had a government type program that some of the people in the program worked towards it, and he said it was a very fine result.
William Mary's not that far away. They may be able to help with something like that.
Yeah. So I think that something like that would be useful. I know that Matt has some experience and information about that. So
Weldon Cooper, the last group facilitator we brought in was from the Weldon Cooper Center of Government, and I think he also worked with VACO as a kind of a range rider group facilitator. I think that happened right before you came on the board, Randy. We've also had Bill Whitley. I think Bill Whitley did one year for us. We had, he's a retired county administrator who lives nearby, who retired from Gloucester. Many of y'all know Bill. We've had a number of folks do it over the years, but now specific to what you're saying, actually developing a strategic vision, kind of a more of a robust plan. That's something we can look into. I can make a couple calls and get a good cross list and maybe prepare something and get some proposals from some people, if that's the will.
He said that when they have gone to outside firms, he said it really wasn't that expensive.
It's really not.
And I think in the long run, if you have a good plan and you have a roadmap that you want to follow, you can do things a little bit more efficiently anyway, and probably make back whatever money you spend on it. I think it'd be money well spent.
It's even easier now because they could probably do a lot of the interviews via Zoom. Yep.
Wonderful. Okay, well, let's think about that, chat about it individually, and we'll come up with some sort of plan, I think, to move forward with that during our retreat process.
Okay. Would you like me to potentially have somebody on board for the retreat so they can start the process then, or y'all want to talk about it at the retreat and then onboard them later?
I don't know, I'll have to think about that a little
Okay.
bit. We don't have a date yet for retreat, and you can gather some information
I will.
about what potential cost might be, and then we can mull it over if everybody's okay with that, and then decide on a potential date and how we want to go, where we want to go. Does
Okay.
that work for everybody? All right?
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. How about, I know y'all have all been waiting, as well as I have, for the county attorney update.
Yes, no. Nothing outside of my staff report at this time.
Yeah, I noticed that you, the appeal on that case, you will have some oral arguments, I think, at some point with that.
Yes, sir, in the near future, I don't know a date yet, but when I do, I'll let you know.
You got an estimate of when it might be, just out of
I
curiosity?
think the end of October.
Really, that quick?
That's what I've been told.
Okay,
I hope they're wrong. I'm okay with that taking quite some time.
okay. Any other questions for Ms. Lewis? All right. Okay, unfinished and new business. Any finished business we need to talk about? Go ahead.
Did we decide at the work session that we were going to discuss the naming of that park today, or is that?
We didn't have a specific date. I think, and y'all correct me, I think we had asked Anne Marie and that committee to come up with some names of what they thought, and we were going to think about it and then address that. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I had a text message early this morning from Tom. He asked me, and I told him that was my understanding as well.
Okay,
Tom Chillamy with the newspaper.
right. So we're waiting for some information, and, you know, it's nice to have a name, but let's make sure we get the right one. So if we have to take some extra time to do that, you know, so be it, right? So, Ms. Ricardi, you okay? Okay. All right, any other unfinished business? New business. I had the wings and wheel under new business for me, but we've already talked about that, so we've taken care of that. Matters presented by the board, and I'm going to start on this end. I started left last time. I'm going to start with Mr. Williams. You got anything for us?
The only thing that I have right now, coming up on the 16th of this month, me and Brother Jesse gonna go to a tour of the Surrey plant down there in, down in Surrey. The lady from Virginia Power, asked us, did want to go, so I just want to know who's taking our money. So I want to go down here and look at it and see. And see, that's the only place I know charge you for everything to get it, so I got to go down and check this stuff out.
Okay,
That's the only thing I.
all right. Mr. Harris,
No, sir, I'm good.
you good?
Yes, sir.
For me, if you take your eyes off the road and/or drive behind the middle school for the complex, they are starting the light project. And so they'll be very active with that over the next probably week to 10 days. And of course, the county has helped with the lighting part of that project. The complex committee has money to try to do some additional facility improvements. And that's underway as well. We're going to be we're going to extend where the concession stand is out and put additional 2 bathrooms there. We're also going to do some paving of that middle strip that comes through the middle. We're going to be paving that as well. That's all coming out of the complex budget. We have a couple fundraisers, but the county doesn't have to come up with any money for those improvements that we're doing. Again, I'll just echo what I've said in the past. It really, really is a great opportunity to see how a private and public concerns can work together to improve your facility. So that's underway. Just for Mr. Tuning, you may want to get some pictures when it's all said and done. We're going to try to do an aerial that we'll try to get to you as well. Probably Stephen will do that, talking about the extra improvements that's going on down there. So I'm pretty excited about it, and anytime the county doesn't have to pay for it, I'm really excited about it.
Are y'all looking at doing anything with the basketball court?
Oh, yes, thank you. We are going to pave. It won't be as nice as the Buddy Park, but we're also going to pave that when we do the paving. We're also going to pave the short track, the walking track that goes around the facility. That's going to be paved as well. And then hopefully, once all that's said and done, we're going to do a really blowout article for the paper to show what's been done and how it's been done. Not to compete with your project, but we had the money to do it, and it was since we were doing some of these other things, it looked like a good idea to go ahead and go through that.
Well, where the basketball court is, have y'all ever thought about maybe putting some kind of small fence across there? On 2 different occasions, I always go, the ball, it never made it across the road on me, but it made it to the ditch. I mean, you got to be attentive to that, but just something to stop the use from.
It doesn't go unnoticed. It's
Okay.
being discussed.
Okay, good enough.
We're not quite sure how exactly we would want to do that, but yes, that's being discussed. That's all I have, so I'll move it right on to you, Mr. Crittenden.
I'm putting together a task force, if you will, for public safety, particularly emergency medical services. And I have 2 people from the county representing, Anne Marie and Dave Lehman have agreed to be on the task force. Wayne and I will be representing the board, and then and I have 2 members from the Middlesex County Volunteer Rescue Squad to be on there. And we're going to be discussing some of the problems that we've encountered, the growing problem of volunteerism down there, as well as preparations for the eventual transition. I hope it doesn't come for a long time, but the eventual transition to a more of an all-paid type service in the county. So we want to discuss those items, and hopefully we'll have some good recommendations.
Mr. Jesse?
All right, I guess I can say we all attended grand opening of the pickleball court and basketball court. It was well attended.
It really
And
was.
and they're using it, that's one thing about it. If you put something in and you make sure you want them to use it. And that was about all for that I attended. I did have the Oyster Festival Foundation, but as you know, you see in the paper who's the Grand Marshal and the
Boat captain.
and Captain. Yeah, all that was advertised. And that's all I had for today.
All right. Okay, I will open the floor for public comments. Hearing none, seeing none, we will now recess for several items that we have for closed session, and then we'll reconvene after that. It doesn't have a particular time for reconvening, I'm not sure
Well, Mr.
exactly
Chairman,
how.
yeah, just to clarify, you're not going to recess, you're going to go into closed session. It's my understanding that there will be no action taken after the closed session unless that's changed.
No,
Okay.
that's correct.
So with that, it would be appropriate, and I believe the board's going to stay in this room, so we're going to ask the public to leave. It would be appropriate for the board to make a motion to convene in closed session pursuant to Virginia Code Sections 2.2-3711A3. This would be to discuss the disposition of publicly held real property where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position of the public body, and pursuant to Code Section 2.2-3711A1. This is for a discussion regarding personnel matters, specifically about the county administrator and the county attorney's positions.
So move.
Second.
Motion's made by Mr. Jesse, seconded by Mr. Crittenden. Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Bill Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Crittenden,
Yes.
Mr. Jesse,
Yes.
Mr. Don Harris.
Yes, motion's approved to move